Welcome back to another episode of Poor Decisions, the true crime and wine podcast where we sip, spill, and solve some seriously twisted stories. I am your host, Bryn, and tonight we are heading to a small town in Texas to uncork a case that truly rocked this community, from a church affair to an axe murder. So grab your glass, pour up, and let's dive in. So if you're new here and you haven't subscribed yet, please go ahead and do so and like this video while you are at it. Also, as we're discussing this case, please feel free to join the conversation and leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Now, before we get into the wine of the week, let's take a look at our sponsor, Wine Girl. You see this shirt that I'm wearing? It says corks are for quitters. It's so on brand for poor decisions, right? Well, this is from the brand Wine Girl, and here at Poor Decisions, we are officially brand ambassadors. So check out Wine Girl's merch shop online at www.shopwinegirl.com and shop for wine-inspired merch just like this shirt and plenty others for my girlies. Use our code PD15 to receive 15% off your orders. And if you're in the Scottsdale, Arizona, Napa Valley, California, or coming soon, San Diego, California, you can visit their physical locations where you can visit and try different wines or attend one of their many cool events. So back to it. Now, this week's wine of the week, we are sipping on one of my favorite wine brands, and it is Barefoot wine. And this is a Riesling. We are one baby step of sweetness away from last week's episode where we had the Voulet. And again, we're going to try to switch off and on. One week we have red, the next week we have white. Last week we had a red, today we're having white, So let's get into Barefoot's Riesling. This is a lovely wine with tasty aromas and flavors of mandarin orange and tangerine, layered with luscious peach and juicy pear. Hints of jasmine and honey complement the sweet and refreshing finish. Okay? And this is a good pairing with white cheeses, fruit appetizers, and spicy cuisines. And this particular wine has an ABV of 8%. So let's go ahead and take a sip. It's a twist top. If you don't know yet, I love twist tops because they're easy to get to. I did not chill this wine. Riesling, they say. I think whites you probably should chill. I should have chilled it. It's not, well, from the bottle, it's not super warm. It's nice and it feels chill. That's it. I like it. It's almost given like a slightly drier Moscato. It definitely has all of that sweetness and those fruity flavors that you would expect in a Moscato, but it's not as sweet, which is good for me because, as I said in a couple episodes back, I am doing what I'm supposed to do on this journey. Before I said it, I was die hard from the top to the bottom, a sweet wine lover. But I am slowly but surely coming out of that. So a couple weeks ago when we dived back, rolled it all the way back, and I went back and tried the Moscato. Before, Moscatos used to be like my number one pick for wine, but that was kind of even still too sweet for me. So this is like the taste and the sweetness you get from that, but a little bit elevated. And I feel like I can taste the pear. I can get that peach and those orangey flavors. So if you're trying this with me, let me know what you guys think. But without further ado, let's dive in. So for our case for tonight, it takes place in the small town of Wiley, Texas. Some of you guys may be familiar with this case. If y'all really, truly are true crime lovers, I'm sure you guys have heard of it. Recently, HBO and Hulu have turned it into their own series. Both of their series kind of are given fiction. It definitely keeps the facts, but it also has their own spin on it. I have watched both, and I found myself in a very good time of watching both the series, comparing the series to each other and comparing them to the actual facts of the real case. So I hope you guys enjoy this one with me. I had tons of fun putting this one together. I'm going to say that lightly because I know true crime, murder, it's not fun. It's not meant to be taken light. I do kind of have a dark sense of humor, but I enjoy these true crime cases. So this one putting together was definitely a fun one. And I think that, you know, with her name is a sweet name, it goes perfect with the wine that we're sitting on. So I'm not going to hold you guys back anymore. We're going to dive right into Candace, aka Candy Montgomery, was the ideal, perfect suburban housewife and mom in the late 1970s. Cooking every day for her family, getting kids ready for school, and dropping them off. She was a part of the PTA at school, and she was just that mom that would like show up like, oh, hey, y'all, I just baked some cookies randomly today. She was also an active member in their church, Lucas Methodist Church. She was on the choir and would sometimes deliver sermons during the Sunday Bible school with the kids. Now, just taking care of home and her family, that was just Candy. But with all the on point and seeming to be together, Candy wasn't happy, or I would just say she wasn't feeling fulfilled. Candy was married to Pat Montgomery, whom she met while working at Texas Instruments. Pat was an engineer while Candy was a secretary. From accounts, Candy wasn't that attracted to Pat, but she married for security. Now, at this time, back in the late 70s, Pat's annual salary was around $70,000, which would now equate to about $340,000. So Pat was very much in a position to take care of Candy and their family. Like, to what we know now, back then, like, he was a very well-off guy. Like, very well-off is probably an understatement, but yeah, she married for that security. Pat and Candy, along with other church members, were a part of a close-knit circle of families who literally did everything together. From potlucks, playing sports, going to church, and everything in between. Now, another one of the families among this close-knit group from church was Betty and Alan Gore. The Gores were also members of Lucas Methodist Church, and their daughter Elisa was best friends with the Montgomery's daughter, Jenny. Now, unlike Pat and Candy, it was reported that Betty and Alan actually married for love. Like, they really actually liked each other. Betty Gore was a middle school teacher who was described as being quiet and much more reserved than Candy. She was even described as sometimes being cold and brash and somewhat unliked by other members of the church. Betty suffered from depression and postpartum after the birth of both of her children. And although she was a mother, a foster parent allegedly to over 60 different kids, not at the same time, but like on and off, collectively, they said she had fostered up to 60 kids, and a teacher, her demeanor with children didn't really come off as soft. It was reported that her students also didn't really like her either. But as far as their marriage, Betty and Alan to the outside world were the perfect couple, and Betty was seemingly obsessed with her husband. Betty was so attached to Alan that she hated when he had to go away for work trips, which he often did. So much so that when he was away, Betty would call his boss. She would call the hotels where he was staying, and y'all, she would even call the restaurants where he was eating. Now, granted, this was back in the day, like before cell phones. So it wasn't like if she needed to talk to him, she could just call his cell phone. She had to call like a landline. So if he was out having dinner and like before he left the hotel, he said, okay, I'm about to go to the Sizzle It. I just made that up. And she needed to talk to him for whatever reason. She's going to call up the Sizzle It. Yes, I want to speak to your guest named Alan Gore. And the waiter is looking around. We got to, sir, your wife is on the phone. It sounds crazy to me, like, you know, in 2025, like, ma'am, you were calling the restaurants that he was at. But when you really calculate that this was back in the day, and then you take in consideration for that, He didn't have a cell phone. Maybe it was an emergency, but it seemed like these were not emergency calls that she was doing. Like she just was obsessed with him. Like she wanted to talk to her husband. She didn't care where you were at, what time it was. If she wanted to talk to Alan, she was calling Alan wherever he was. Again, calling his boss, calling the hotels, calling the restaurants. Again, in my opinion, a bit crazy, but I digress. She even fussed at his boss at a point for sending him on these trips, and she asked him to stop. Now, I want to know what you guys think about that. Let me know your thoughts and opinions based upon the job that you have, or maybe not the one that you had. If you had a job that required you to go on frequent business trips and your spouse called your boss and told your boss to stop sending you on these trips, how would you feel? Let me know how you feel. I kind of want to hold my opinion, but I'm not going to. I'm going to give it to you. I would kind of almost feel violated. Like, granted, this is not the housing situation of Candy and Pat, where Candy is a stay-home mom and Pat is out here just being a bread maker. Over here with Alan and Betty, they're both working. But still, it's just kind of like, how dare you, in my opinion. But let me know what you guys think. Now that we've introduced our key playing families, let's get into how we got to murder, which I bet you can guess, like a lot of these cases similarly do. It all started from an affair. And let's take a sip of wine on that. I'm almost done already. I'm definitely going to pour up a little more. Both of my dogs are sitting right in front of me right now. Coming soon, I'm not sure exactly how I want to do it, but I definitely do want to like change our background up a little bit. You see, I did add a little plant back here. Just a little, you hear her crying? I want to do something where, I don't know, they could like lay with me. It's okay, mama. So who had the affair? Let's talk about it. Candy had grown restless with their marriage and said their relationship lacked excitement, and she was craving something more. Now, after a church volleyball game, Candy approached Alan Gore and told him a very bold truth. She told him that she was attracted to him and had been thinking about him a lot, but she wasn't sure yet if she wanted him to do anything about it. But she wanted to tell him, that way she would stop thinking about it. She even confided in her closest church friends, which included Sherry, and even her pastor, Jackie, who was like a best friend to her. But she openly told them how she was feeling and that she was interested in having an affair. Now, guys, just imagine, number one, being that close to your pastor, but also giving zero fucks that you can tell your pastor that you openly like, I want to have an affair. I feel like I would be way too afraid of my pastor judging me and trying to pray over me or looking at me about all the things that is wrong with that. I mean, again, it is one of her best friends, but Jackie, she's still a pastor at the end of the day. I don't know. I don't think I would ever want to be like best friends with my pastor. Would you guys do that? Let me know. I don't know. I think it's weird, but anyway, I digress. Now, the next time that Candy saw Alan at church, she propositioned him. She was bold and very matter-of-factly in her approach to Alan. She just asked if he wanted to have a casual affair, like just straight up asked. And then they both went their separate ways and thought it through before agreeing. They even went through the pros and cons of having an affair, and yes, they like listed them out. In the end, they both agreed to do it, but they established very strict rules to follow. And their number one rule was that if either one of them began to catch feelings, they would end the affair immediately. Neither one of them wanted to leave their spouse or hurt them. So they agreed that they would meet for their affair at hotels outside of town. That way they would avoid being recognized by anyone. Also, they would meet during Alan's lunch breaks. Again, Alan was actually working. He had a job. Candy was a stay-at-home. Candy would make lunch for Alan. That way they would have more time to spend together, and she would secure the hotel using cash so her name would not be there. And then she would call Alan at work with the location of the hotel and the room number. And he would later reimburse her for half the money for the hotel room. Some people have complained about this. Like, he could at least pay for it. I mean, hey, y'all are both out here being risky. Half of it for the affair. Do what y'all do. Not condoning it. I'm just saying, do what y'all do. But they even agreed together on a start date of December 12th, 1978 to officially begin the affair. I'm going to take a sip of wine because you would think an affair right like this, right down to the T. You guys accounted for everything. How we're going to end this. If anybody ever catches feelings, be open and honest with each other. Once you start feeling, let me know and we're done. We just want to get it on. We want to get into some spicy activity. But I don't want to leave my husband. You don't want to leave your wife. And we don't want the two of them to ever find out because we don't want to hurt them. We're just trying to have some fun on the side and fill a void that they must not be, clearly being filled at home. Take a sip of wine for them. I just love her bold approach. Like, she's showing us already that Candy, she really don't give 0 fucks. I'm going to just approach you and tell you, like, yeah, I've been thinking about you. I don't know if I want you to do nothing yet, but hold on to that. I'm just letting you know. And the next time, it's like, all right, I thought about it. What you want to do? You want to have a casual affair with me? Like, go ahead, Candy. Cheers to Candy. Now, majority of the affair meetups did consist of sex, but not all of them. Some meetups, they just spent talking. During their affair, they had actually become very good friends, where in each other, they could discuss issues outside of themselves, like at home life and work, and really confide in each other. Alan even said that his affair with Candy had actually helped his marriage with Betty. They even went to a kind of like a church marriage counseling that was called Marriage Encounter. And that helped Betty and Alan's marriage even more. And after this, the two, Alan and Candy, decided to end their affair. Alan felt he could no longer keep up the spicy exploits with Candy because he would be too exhausted for his own wife, Betty. Like, they went to Marriage Encounter. It was starting to work. Alan and Betty's sexual life, spicy life was starting to get better. But sometimes he would come home after meeting Candy for lunch, and Betty might have wanted to get a little spicy. And he was exhausted. He couldn't even perform because he had gave up all his energy to Candy earlier in the day. So he was like, I can't do this. I got to save my energy for my wife because we're doing good. I want this to work and fix itself. So Candy, we can't do this no more. So to help his marriage, he decided to focus all of his spicy energy at home with Betty. And from accounts, Candy was okay with this. Again, as the root of their affair was never intimate or emotional, it was just physical. And together, they both agreed that if feelings ever got caught on or if they needed to end the affair, that they would. And when they ended the affair, life continued as normal. Candy and Alan were still good friends, as well as Candy and Betty. And the spouses seemed to be in the dark. Well, Betty was, but not Pat. Pat had found a love letter written to Candy from Alan, but he chose not to confront her about it. According to Candy's friend Sherry, by the time that Pat had found out about the affair was over, so he left it alone. It really wasn't a point to confront something that's dead and done, so he didn't say anything. And Candy was so inspired by the good that the Marriage Encounter had done for Alan and Betty's marriage that she and Pat tried it too. Everything seemed great. That was until June 13th, 1980. And before we get into the details, we're going to take a sip. Starting to get a little warm, y'all. Alan and Betty's oldest daughter, Elisa, who was also best friends with Pat and Candy's daughter, Jenny, was spending the night at the Montgomery's house. That day, they had plans for a church pageant during the day and to go to the movies to see the latest Star Wars movies later that night. Jenny wanted Alyssa to join, which would mean spending another night. The Montgomerys had no problem with Alyssa staying another night, but she had swim lessons the next morning and she did not pack her swimsuit. So that meant that Candy had to go to the Gore house to get it. So Candy had made plans that after dropping the kids to church before the pageant, to quickly swing past the Gore house to grab Alyssa's swimsuit and then stop at the local Target store to pick out Father's Day cards from the children for their father, before then going back to the church in time for the pageant. She was on a time crunch with so many things to do because this was just Candy, back and forth here and there, doing everything that she had to do for her family. Now, when Candy arrived to the Gore house to get the bathing suit, she said that Betty seemed a little agitated. Now, the reason for this was because just that morning, Alan had left for yet another business trip, leaving Betty to care for their infant child, Bethany. In addition to that, earlier that day before Alan left, Betty had confided to him that she was worried that she might again be pregnant. But this time, she did not want to be. She had battled with postpartum depression after their first child and during and after the birth of their second. She did not want to go through that again. And I've never been a mother, I've never been pregnant, but from what I hear about it, if I had been through that, it's not something I don't think I would want to go through again either, but it's not about me. So fast forward back to Candy being at the house. Candy said that Betty did not mind Alyssa spending another night and going with them to the movies. She just made sure to mention to Candy that Alyssa typically did not like to put her head underwater during the swim lessons. So when she did, Betty would kind of reward her with peppermints. So Betty made sure that when giving Candy the swimsuit, that Candy also took some peppermints to give to Alyssa. Now, before Candy was about to leave the Gore residence, Betty allegedly confronted her about the affair. Now, prior to this, we all thought that Betty was in the dark and that she had no idea, but no. Candy was honest and told Betty that they had previously had an affair, but it was over now. According to Candy, Betty became noticeably furious. She said Betty left and entered the utility room and then returned holding an axe. Candy claimed she tried to calm Betty down and reassure her that she no longer had any desire for Alan, but Betty was unstoppable. Candy claimed that this is when Betty swung the axe at her, striking her in the top of her head. And then she swung it at her feet, cutting one of her toes. A fight broke out between the two of them as they wrestled for control. Now, although Betty was larger in size to Candy, Candy was able to get the axe from Betty's hands, and then she began to attack Betty back, allegedly in self-defense. Betty was struck a total of 41 times from the axe, and 28 of those hits were to her head. Imagine being axed in the head, y'all. 28 times. Crazy. After the attack and Betty had died, Candy then went into their bathroom to clean herself up. She took a shower and got dressed and returned back to the church. She arrived back later than she was supposed to, and she had missed the pageant. She continued to repeat the same cover story to literally anyone who would listen, saying that she lost track of time while she was over at Betty's just talking, and they were just lost in translation, having such a good girl talk. That then she left and she went to Target, but when she arrived to Target, she realized that her watch had stopped and she was late for the pageant. So apparently she never even went inside of Target and then just turned back around, came back to the church, but unfortunately she was a little too late for the pageant. And then she just continued throughout her day as regular. Now, later that day, while away on business, Alan grew concerned after not hearing from Betty all day like he normally would. Remember, I said Betty is always calling him. Everywhere he go, Betty is calling him. But for some reason, right now, she was not. And he was a little suspicious of that. He attempted to call the house a few times, but after not getting an answer, he called one of his neighbors, Richard, and asked if he could go by the house and check on Betty. Again, Betty was home watching her infant daughter, so go check on her. When Richard first came by the house, he didn't notice anything, but got no answer at the door. He went home and told Alan that he thought that Betty must have went out. But a few more hours later, Alan was still having no luck with reaching Betty. He then called Richard again to go back and check on Betty. This time, Richard obtained access to the house from the front door, which was left unlocked. Baby Bethany was found crying in her crib, covered in her own feces. After further search of the house from not only Richard but a few of their other neighbors as well, Betty's lifeless body was discovered covered in blood on the floor of the utility room. At first glance, the neighbor Richard thought Betty had been shot since it was so much blood. But later they would learn she was attacked using an axe. That's crazy. Alan admitted to investigators about his affair with Candy, but told them that it was amicable that they broke it off, so she would have no reason to harm Betty. But within just 1 week, investigators had what they needed, which included a bloody footprint that matched Candy. Candy obtained wounds during the attack, leaving her blood DNA behind. Candy was arrested and charged with the brutal murder of Betty Gore. During trial, her defense team did not argue her innocence at all. Instead, they agreed that Candy was indeed the one who had attacked and murdered Betty, but unlike the prosecutor who argued it was a fit of rage, they argued it was due to self-defense. And here's where the trial took a twist. The defense brought in a psychiatrist who testified that Candy had suffered a psychological break. During the struggle, Betty allegedly shushed her, like literally said, shh. And allegedly, that single shh word was enough to trigger a deep-seated childhood trauma of being silenced by her mother. They claimed Candy then went into a dissociative state and lost control. The jury had heard it all. The affair, the axe, the attack, the overkill, and unbelievably, on October 30th, 1980, they sided with the defense and found Candy not guilty of murder. Candy walked out of the courtroom a free woman. Candy and Pat soon moved away to Georgia, and she eventually began going by her maiden name of Wheeler. And she got a job working as a mental health counselor for teens and families. And that sounds similar to one of our previous cases of Sylvia Likens, how they murdered that girl and later was able to just go on and change their names, start a whole new life completely disassociated from the crime that they committed. Like, shaking my fucking head. Like, I tell you, not to be funny, but it seems like back in the day was really the time to commit crimes. Like, you really could get away with anything back in the day. Like, crazy. But to this day, people debate whether Candy Montgomery got away with murder or if the jury truly believed she snapped in self-defense. The case inspired books, movies, and streaming series, including Hulu's Candy, starring Jessica Biel, and HBO Max's Love and Death, starring Elizabeth Olsen. I highly recommend y'all to watch both. I watched both. They are both really good. They both detail the case from different angles, but they still do a really good job with keeping the details of the facts. Now, I will say that apparently HBO's series Love and Death was in production first, but Hulu's series Candy was released first. And from watching it, I personally, they're both good, but I prefer Love and Death. I feel like HBO's Love and Death was more thought out. I kind of believe, honestly, that maybe Hulu got wind that HBO was also working on the same type of series. So they rushed to put theirs out first, I guess, to get the attraction. Because Hulu's version just doesn't, it seems to be a bit rushed and like not really fully attention grabbing. But in my personal opinion, I definitely preferred HBO's Love and Death. But you guys check both of them out and let me know which one you guys like the best. I'm gonna get a sip of wine. I'm talking too fast. That's how I know. Feeling it, feeling it, feeling it, and I. Now it's time for our case discussion. Now for our case discussion, I'm almost out of wine. I'm gonna pour up again. But our case discussion, I'm not gonna do too much. I don't wanna be too litty. Alright, so our case discussion, pretty simple. 2 questions. My first one is, do you really honestly truly believe that this was a case of self-defense? Let me know what you guys think. Join the conversation down below. Do we think this is a case of self-defense? So in cases like these, which pretty much is every case where you unalive somebody and it's no witnesses there, it's just you and the person you unalive. Unfortunately, the only story we have to go off of is yours, because the other person that you unalived is unalive. So they can't really tell their side. So all we have to go off of is Candy's story. Now, up until all the research that I did, it says the same thing, that it seemed that Betty never knew. They said Pat found out because he talked to Candy's friend Sherry. So we knew that he knew, but he chose not to confront Candy or say anything about it. But as far as Betty, there is no account. Alan never said that Betty questioned him or, confronted him. None of Betty's other friends said that Betty ever mentioned anything about the affair. So it is quite possible that Betty did not know, or how people thought she did not know, but the whole time she might have been figuring it out. Maybe she didn't have hardcore evidence, but she was suspecting it. So it is possible that when Candy got there today to pick up the swimsuit for Alyssa, it is very possible that Betty did confront her and ask her about the affair. And according to Candy, she said she was honest, and I told her, yes, we were having previously an affair, but we're not doing it no more, and I don't want your man. And as we learned that Candy is very blunt and straightforward, I believe that girl. Well, that lady. She had no problem propositioning your husband to have an affair. So now that you're asking her about it when it's over, the way that she said that, I told her, yes, we was having an affair, but it's done now. She might have actually done that. So did Betty become angered and pick up an axe? She might have. And according to other people accounts of Betty, the way they compare the two to each other, they're like, Candy is so warm. She's like America's sweetheart of a mom and wife. And Betty just seems to be tolerated by other members of the church, where it seems like Candy is more welcomed into their groups. But Betty, maybe just because you go to church and we kind of all hang out with the different families and spouses of church, we're going to include you, but because we have to. That's kind of how it seemed like people felt about Betty. So I don't know. Does that mean that she would be an aggressor? I don't know. But we also know that comparing the 2 marriages, Betty actually loved her husband. She loved Alan, where Candy just saw, security and dollar signs in Pat. We know that Betty actually loved her husband. That's why she was calling everywhere to talk to him. So it is possible that, she felt a way, that she found out that you're telling me in my face, yes, I was having an affair with your husband, but it's over now. Betty might have saw red, F no, girl, you was not about to take my man. That is my man. I love my man, with every fiber in me. She loves her man. So she might have felt that rage in her, no, I'm going to do something about this. And even though Candy, you're reassuring her that the affair is done, she might have still just been no, I'm going to make sure it's done. And the only way to do that is for me to unalive you. And the first thing she grabbed was an axe. Who knows? Because none of us were there. We will not know. Is it self-defense? I'm going to say yeah. To an extent. I'm going to take Candy's account and say that Betty confronted her. She went and she grabbed the axe and she tried to come at Candy. So yeah, you might have been able to get the best of her, wiggle the axe away. All right, she'd have hit you in your head, busted your head, busted your toe. So you swing on her one time to kind of get her down. But to swing, actually make contact with her 41 times, and 28 of those times are all in the head, that is overkill. I think that's where it shifts from, okay, self-defense, I was defending myself because I was scared for my life. They did ask her in the trial in court, like at certain points, they asked Candy, did you fear for your life? And she was like, no, I never thought that she was going to hit me. It wasn't until Betty actually struck her in the head that she thought, oh, wow, she really is trying to hurt me. So then that's when they started fighting over it. But 41 times, the 28 alone is excessive that you got her in the head. But 41? And also because she told her to shh. Like in the middle of us fighting, she told me to shh. And I just went crazy. I think that's overkill. And I think overkill kind of cancel out self-defense. If you would have hit her 1, 2 times, I would even say, hey, maybe 5. Still might be a little bit. Like she did hit you twice, in the head and in your toe. All right, an axe. Just imagine an axe. First of all, axes are heavy. So you gotta, I'm not even gonna do that a lot because it's crazy. But like, I think that overkill cancels out self-defense, and Candy definitely did overkill. It might have started off of that, like I said, because she hit you. She did strike you with that axe. But once you got a hold of that axe and then you just let loose, and then you said because she said, shh, so therefore you had a psychological break. I don't believe that. It triggered back to when you was a kid and you were silenced by your mother because your mother told you, shh. You know how many times as a kid people tell you to shh? Not even just your mom, other adults. And if when I turn into an adult, somebody tells me to shh, and that triggers, it's not funny, but like it triggers that I'm about to go crazy out of rage and just overkill murder you. That's crazy. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think this was a case of self-defense? I am so, humor me, because I would love to know what you guys think. Leave your comments down below. Now, the second question in tonight's case discussion is, do you believe that Candy was really okay with ending the affair with Alan? Again, according to accounts from Alan, he was the one who, it was his idea to end the affair because he wanted to work on things between him and Betty. He said it was amicable. What do you guys think about that? Maybe in front of Alan, Candy pretended, yeah, I'm okay with this. Maybe she wasn't. And maybe that day when she went to the house to go pick that bathing suit up for Alyssa, maybe she confronted Betty and was like, look, I want to take your man. I want your man. I've been having an affair with him. He's mine now. You think you can get him back and y'all can work on this? No. I don't think that really happened, but I'm curious to know, like, from what it sounded like, it was like she knew that her, from what it sounded like too, like Pat, the money that he was bringing in, Candy married for money. She didn't really care about love for real. She wanted a marriage and a husband that she would be able to be secure and her family and her kids be secure. She didn't have to work. She was able to sit home, clean the house, go to bake sale, go to PTA, go to church, do the choir, do a couple sermons at Bible school, hang out with her friend Sherry, hang out with her best friend, the pastor. She was living that life. Alan, I don't know exactly what job he did, but it was given that he was kind of having like a regular common job, where, as you know, both him and Betty were working. Betty was a teacher. So I don't think that Alan had a job where he was making as much like how Pat was. So I don't think that, I don't know. I don't think that Candy ever fell in love with Alan. At least from the research that I did, they never said that. Even from the both of the series we watched, they did not let on to that at all. They made it seem like it was very much of an amicable affair, and that Candy was okay at home. She was just missing that excitement and that spicy activity, and she was getting that out of Alan. But she never wanted to break up home. So I don't think that she really would have had a problem with it. Again, afterwards, she took Pat to that same marriage encounter counseling that helped fix Alan and Betty. I think that she might have really been trying to, like, let's fix us too. Let me know what y'all think. Do you think that Candy was really okay with it? Some people speculate that she wasn't. They'd be like, no, she was jealous because Betty and Alan really loved each other and she wanted that love. I don't know. It's given the type of woman that Candy was. A man like Alan, I don't think he was fit for a woman like her. And I mean, again, like, he had a common job. It wasn't like he was making hella money like how Pat was, and you could afford to just sit back and not work and be a housewife. And Pat had enough money to take care of y'all. It didn't seem like Alan was like that. When they had the 2 kids, like, not only was Betty nervous about if she thought she was pregnant, she didn't want to go through that postpartum, but it was like, it's a lot on us already having 2 kids. So having a 3rd one, and she worked, it was given they was not bringing in the money like that. So I don't think that the type of woman that Candy was, she would go from that to that. She seemed like she might have been a little materialistic too, so let me know what you think. I really want y'all to watch both of these. Watch both Hulu's Candy and HBO's Love and Death, and let me know what y'all think. Please watch them and let me know. Do you think that this was a case of self-defense? And number 2, do you believe that Candy was really okay with ending the affair with Alan? I think she was. I don't think it was too much that she was getting out of it, but besides some spicy activity. Yeah, he was writing her a couple of love letters here and there, but it was, yeah, I think that was cool for them. They ain't want more than that. But again, leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Let me know. Let's talk about it. Now let's get into this week's Wine of the Week wine rating. I be feeling like every week I gotta stop rating everything a 3. I'm like, everything is not a 3. This is so good though. Can y'all can hear me slurring, right? This is at 8%. It's almost like a baby. Not that high, but I feel it. And it's good. It's giving me very much like if I wanted a sweet, like how I like my Moscato, or you really used to like my Moscato, I could dive into this and it's not super sweet. So I think this is definitely good for y'all and for us on this journey of getting out the sweet. Next week, we're going to do a red. I think I know which red we're going to do, but I don't want to promise that. I'm going to see. But make sure y'all tune in for next week, because in 2 weeks. Next episode is a good one too, y'all. That one sent me down a freaking rabbit hole. But follow us. Well, subscribe here on YouTube. Like this video. Go back and check out some of our other previous episodes if you haven't already. Comment below. Leave your thoughts and opinions. Like those other videos. Leave your thoughts and opinions on there. Subscribe. Share the video to a friend who likes true crime or who likes wine. If they don't, share it to them anyway and tell them to get into it. And then also head on over to our Instagram page at It's Poor Decisions and follow us there. If you guys have any case recommendations or wine recommendations, please feel free to DM us on Instagram. Again, it's at Poor Decisions. We want all your recommendations. And don't forget to check out our sponsor, Wine Girl, while you're at it, so you can get a shirt like mine and plenty others. The season is changing. They got new merchandise coming out. I'm definitely, it's about to get cold. It's fall time. It's about to be that time. I'm going to get me a couple sweatshirts. And as y'all can see, I love me a hat. This hat says my dog is my child. Absolutely, that's my daughter. But I'm going to get me some hats too. So make sure you guys check it out. And until next time, you guys already know, make good choices and not poor decisions.